G'day, welcome to DJF Live. This is episode 124, and on today's show we're launching 5.0, and specifically we're going to take a look at the new ATEM layout that I've been working on for many months, and I'm finally excited to launch that today. So we're going to have the ATEM and also the DJF CORE Demo is what I'm calling that now, which also ships with the ATEM as your sort of live stream operation foundation. So those two things we're going to take a look at because it's been a little while since 2020. If you remember back in the a pandemic, when the ATEM Mini Pro ISOs were all the rage, that's what got me into all of this. The hardware capabilities were amazing, but the controls weren't great, and so I actually wanted to jump in and grab a Stream Deck and start building something to control it, and that is what has led to this whole endeavor to make the live streaming process easier to run, and which is what has become DJF Live, and really excited to go through that today. So let's kick off and take a look at the new ATEM 5.0 updates, because there's been a ton of work here. Some of the structure may look similar, but under the hood this is completely rewritten. I've got whole new sort of page reduction, but also more functions available. So bringing a whole lot of things into this version of it. So my philosophy for this 5.0 release was trying to simplify the layout into more of a clear tree hierarchy. So starting with core on homepage 1 is where you can jump to anywhere, and when you jump to the ATEM now has its dedicated home, and from there you can go to submenus, and so you're staying within the ATEM ecosystem. So here we are on the core page, and we jump into the ATEM, and now this is the ATEM home page from which you can control ATEMs 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you've got all of the sub menus there. So now what you'll see on this page too is we have multi mix effect layers and multi-ATEM scaling all within the one page. So previously it had to be pages of one ATEM, pages of another ATEM, and it just, we ended up with like 80 pages in Companion, and it was a lot to manage and to, even on the back end, just to go through. So now we've been able to actually reduce the page build count down to like 15 pages, but address 80 inputs on the 4ME Plus and 3 ATEMs, and just fit a lot more under the hood, but also trying to keep it more simple. So we've got our ATEMs 1, 2, and 3, which if you select an ATEM, you'll see over here you've got the feedback here of, like, I've got an Extreme plugged in here, which is recording, so the feedback lights up, but when I select my constellation, it goes away. So I'm just kind of keep that really simple on one page without having to go to multiple pages for ATEMs. You've got, depending on what hardware you have, you can have up to 4 mix effect layers. So if you've got a 4ME, you'll have up to 4 available there. I'm working with a 2ME constellation, and so it just is showing 2 MEs available here, and 3 and 4 are grayed out. So this is hardware aware, so it knows what you're working with, and if the capability is not there, the visual feedback will be not highlighted, so that you can just focus on what is available to work with your hardware. And then from here we've got all of our functions, which we'll jump into in a little bit, but we've got our input page, we've got auxiliary routing, media pool, we've got audio, Supersource key, downstream key, multiview, macro, and mix. So all of this is very easy to access within that ATEM home page. Let's take a look at the input switching flow. So there's two things I want to talk about here. One is that there's an intuitive preview program mode for switching, and also that there's what I'm calling a sort of direct input assignment, so that you can remap sources without having to go into the back end of Companion. You can do that all from the front end. So the first one I was talking about was preview program mode here. This existed before, but I've cleaned it up and made it, there was a double press sometimes, and so now it just very cleanly switches between a preview mode, which if you wanted to switch cameras this way is more of like a director style, where you would put something into preview and then you would hit auto or cut to put that onto air. Or if you want to do the program mode, then when you come in here, you're just going to be doing like direct cuts that way, which works really well for like what I'm doing now, where I'm presenting and I just want to be able to hard switch, or if you're cutting a music video and you just want to go really fast. And so that means you can very easily jump around with this, set your mode in terms of program or preview switching there. You can also do the input switching. What I was talking about was previously, if you long pressed one of the input buttons, you would be doing sort of auxiliary routing, but we don't need that anymore because we've got easy access to that by simply, like, I can select auxiliary 1 here, and now all of this is routing auxiliary 1. Which is really great for IMAG, all those sort of applications, and I can jump back to switching the program. And so the long press function is now actually to change the input assignment. So here I've got camera 1, and I can just long press that, and you'll see this pops up here, and I can change which input I've assigned to it. So I can go to camera 2, and now I've got 2 camera 2 buttons here, and I can quite simply change it back to camera 1. And so that's how on the front end you can just change what inputs you're switching with. So when you're setting up a show, you don't have to go into Companion and copy and paste buttons and sort of build the specific inputs that you want to work with, because remember, if you're working with 80 inputs, you can add in additional stream decks for more buttons, but also wanted to make it so that you could switch a whole show just within one stream deck. So it's really important to have that functionality both ways. All right, this is probably the part of the ATEM upgrade that I find the most fun because it's things moving around. The Supersource Transitions have pre-built layouts now, and they transition smoothly and natively from within Companion, so there's no external macros required. You might have known in previous years you might have had to go get a whole macro pack and install that into the ATEM, and then set up a path to sort of trigger things in between the Stream Deck, Companion, and the ATEM inbuilt macros. You don't need to do that anymore. It's all within Companion, and what makes that great is not just that it's more simple, but it means that you can customize presets and sort of make adjustments to them on the back end without having to go into the Blackmagic software, which I've never liked in terms of how, it's not very graphical. It's like these little sliders, back and forth. So this looks like, let's jump into the ATEM Supersource. Here we can change any of the boxes and customize the boxes. But if we come into, here we are, presets. I've just got to hit my, I've got like a preset layer here, so sort of presentation, and I can work through different looks here. I've got just the same routing in here. So you could have 3 people presenting a screen, this kind of stuff. Box present. This is the one that I quite like using because it has a bit of a demo. But you could also do yourself full screen, and then you could, for example, bring on a guest, or bring on 3 or 4 guests depending on what you want, with like lower thirds, or if you want it like full screen like that. There's plenty of things that I've built in here to just sort of get you started, and then if you want to make modifications, you can sort of go in and change some of that. So that's a really neat way of having all of this from within Companion, which is just no additional things required. Don't install any ATEM macros, and it's all just set up ready to go in there. There's also the same sort of customization that we've had before. Similarly, let's take a look at the Upstream Key Control, because just like with the Supersource, you now have smooth flying key transitions, and I've built out a whole range of pre-built presets for you to operate. So for example, you can see I'm using an upstream key here for my little circle. So if I jump into the key, I can come into preset, and I can move that key around wherever I want, or I could turn it into a box. And I've also got presets that I've built for the iPad. So this is sort of the vertical iPad alignment, or else this is the horizontal iPad alignment. So if you're trying to demo something, you could put that into this box here. You can take a center cut and put it on the left or the right, or else you could just do like a screen split left or right like that, or you could just stick with a really simple picture-in-picture. But this is all presets that I've built in here. They are situationally aware of each ATEM layer that you're on. So if you're operating on ME2, then these buttons will know that you're on, you know, the ATEM to ME2, and it'll like make the changes on that layer. So there's actually a ton of depth behind here that you don't necessarily see. Let's put my little circle back here just so I'm ready for the next thing. There's also a lot more customizing control in here. Previously, again, it was like having to long press buttons to bring up multiple states, just because otherwise the trying to resize things would have meant building out pages and pages of different variations. Now that's all possible just like within a couple of buttons. So for example, I've got my XY here, so I could move it across and I could move it up here, and I could choose my size and I can make it a bit bigger. So if I want to customize this on the fly, it's much easier to do that, and then I can sort of use presets A and B to long press to save it and to recall those positions. So ton more effect in there. There's also an adjust section, so your border and the shadow and all that kind of stuff you can turn on and off in here from the Upstream key. And then this on air, I've just sort of simplified this. Again, it's like a one press. You can press this one is like the key next, so it'll, on your next transition, it will go on or off. Or you can just sort of hard cut on and off. And you'll see a bit of feedback here too, in terms of when you've selected that key, it will show you which one is on air with this red highlight here. So that is the key. I might make my circle a little bit smaller just so we get back to what we're working with. The media pool workflow, some updates in Companion now means that you can see thumbnails of your actual media pool images. So they're rendered automatically and brought onto the Stream Deck, which is really neat. It's going to help reduce a lot of errors. But I've also built in a way to automate lower thirds, either manually or with a sort of timed duration. So if we jump over to the media pool, we can see that we've got all of our images here. I've got 40 available in my 2ME constellation, so I can, but then, you know, there's more slots available if you've got the 4ME plus. So you can just select a button to bring it up, and this is bringing it up, changing it in my media player up on my multi-view up here. I've got two images here which are PNGs with transparency, so this is my lower third. And what I can previously, this was sort of in there, but you had to long press it, and it was I felt like when you're operating it was just more prone to error. So now what it is there's two modes down here. So you select which media player you want to work with. I'm going to work with media player 1. And then I'm going to enable the tie DSK auto. So this is tying the downstream key to media player 1. You'll see this has gone yellow, just to remind me that this is engaged and active. And now when I press this, it will actually fade on my, let's move my face out of here. It will fade on the graphic. And if I press it again, it will fade it off. And but we can go one step further than that, which is to set a automatically come off. And this is really handy if you're doing a panel and you got a bunch of people and you're also trying to switch, but you want to like put up some lower thirds. You want to be able to cut to a person and just like put the person's lower third off, and then let your mind go elsewhere, knowing that that graphic will come off air. So the other one to enable is the DSK timeout mode. So this is the downstream key timing out, and I've set it to 8 seconds. In the downstream key menu, you can customize this to however many seconds that you want. And so the way this works is when you select the graphic you want to work with. So I want to work with this one, and if it's highlighted, then when I press it again, it's going to come on air, and you'll see now the seconds are counting down to however is long before that will automatically come off air, like so. And I can hit guest. So this is like just another variation that I have just to show you a different graphic. Makes it easy to do your lower thirds. And that's all within the ATEM as well, remember? So all these media stills are inside the ATEM. You're not having to plug in another computer source to get that in. It's within the ATEM, so your companion ATEM and Stream Deck, and then you're running your lower thirds graphics. All right, I made some big changes to the audio page that's been redesigned to expand the channel access so that we can have more input counts on a page. And I just wanted to make the visible mute states and quick level adjustments easier to get to. So if we go over to our audio, this is broken up into this kind of selecting what you're going to control, which aspect, like mute, AF, solo, gain, fader, all that kind of stuff. And then this section is the channels, and here I can switch between the channels. So I've got 11 to 20 up to, I've got 40 channels that you can input. So I'm going to start on 1 to 10. Inputs 1 to 10 is here, and then I've got additional buttons for mic 1 and 2 or TRS. This is grayed out at the moment because I don't have I'm connected to a constellation, so it's giving you that hardware-aware feedback saying I don't actually have a mic 1 input. I've actually got a TRS, which is what I'm speaking to you on. So I'll leave that one alone. And you can select the on, mute, and you can just basically turn on and off buttons, inputs very easily. AFV, again, you can select it. If it's on air, it's going to show you that it's red as well. And solo, if you have an ATEM that supports the solo, this constellation doesn't, but it's in there if you wanted to do, like the minis, I think, can do some soloing of these channels. And then the one that you probably use a lot is the fader and the gain and infinity. So with the fader, I can select a channel to work with, and then I can adjust this here. So I can actually hold it down, and it's got an exponential curve in it, so you're not going to, have to step all the way down to 100. You can have it all the way to 100, and if I hold that channel, it's actually going to do a fade back up to 0. So it's very easy to come in here and to sort of just hold channels down to reset them to 0. Likewise, if you hit infinity, then you can actually get all these channels to go down to minus 100 that way. And same thing with gain. You can adjust gain up and down, and then delay. Not all channels have delay on it, but the ones like, for example, this mic channel, I can adjust that one with the delay there. So there's so much more visibility here to be able to see and change what's going on in terms of the feedback of where the levels are at, what's on or not on. And then also up the top here, we've got more global things like master, headphones, monitor, talkback, and side tone. So that is the audio changes. I also want to talk about auxiliary routing, and I guess also routing in general. So the auxiliary outputs can be reassigned in seconds with clearly labeled destinations. So if you imagine you've got something like an IMAG or a lobby feed, and you need to quickly change what's going out to these auxiliary outputs, then this is where having this Stream Deck layout will really help that. Okay, so we can come into auxiliary, and you can have up to 48 outputs if you've got the 4ME plus profile. If you've got the 2ME profile, you'll have 12. I've got 12 connected here, and you can see, so these ones are grayed out. And then if you had a 1ME, you'd have up to 6 is what the Constellation 1ME can support, or the ATEM Mini ISO would have 4, or ATEM Mini has 1. So this will, the hardware will tell this configuration what's available and what's not. And basically you can select which channel you want to work with, and then you can, whoops, where am I going? You can select the channel and change this one back. And then you go to the input page and you can select your input and then sort of go back there. So you can either go into, select them individually and go into the input, or also available are these jump and jump back, which means that it will automatically jump you into the page and jump you back out. So you can do sort of faster routing in between pages. Don't have a demo set up, but I'll just quickly mention that you can do similar sort of multi-view routing with without sort of changing what effects in, so that you can change what effects in your multi-view output. Jump over to multi-view page. Similar sort of, if you imagine the multi-view grid has 16 windows, you can select which one you want to work with, and then you can go to the input page, select an input, and come back and just work through these windows. And you can also turn on sub-windows. So if you wanted to turn off, like make it a full quadrant rather than a 16th, then you can press that here, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4 multi-views for the 4ME, or 2 or 1 for the other profiles. So that is available there. Likewise with so all of this switching happens on this input page, and that's all situationally aware of what mode you're switching. So if you've got a Supersource box selected, that's going to change what's being input, and there's sort of color feedback here to change that. And that means that we can have things like, and I'll get to this later, in the when we go back to the core menu, and you might want just like a few buttons for switching, you can have your ME layer, and you can have additional MEs in here, and you can have auxiliary, and you can have key, and you can do your switching and change your sort of destinations just by very quickly selecting a different destination. One more thing, just on the design, I kind of mentioned it before, but it's the single action button clarity. So buttons now perform one clearly labeled action per press for the most part, removing hidden long press behaviors so that operators always know exactly what will happen before they touch the button. There is still some like longer press, PTZs have a save function on long press, or changing the ATEM input channel here. If you hold that down, you can change the routing, but that's sort of more in the setup phase rather than operating this more permanently. Let's get my face back over to this side. All right. All right, let's jump back into part 2, which is DJF CORE, and we'll do a demo of that. CORE is now kind of what I'm calling my sort of main home pages, which is about 10 pages. And to just sort of introduce them, this sort of becomes the central operating layer that removes page hunting and creates a consistent home base for every production. So this is actually what I switch a show on. And even though there's all that ATEM functionality that I just showed you, there's the way that I actually run the show is sort of on the front end in these core pages. So let's start by taking a look at the home page architecture. You can see it here, which is page 1 is what you find on the back end as well. And from here, it's really about being able to jump anywhere into all of your companion pages, so that you're not having to, by default, if you just have companion installed, it's a blank page and you've got to jump through each page to get to what you want. So if you want to get to page 30, you've got to press down 30 times to get there. So this just jumps you into an ATEM, or into camera control, or into changing your clock settings, or VLC playback. So everything's available at this front menu. And there's also some submenus. So there's a settings menu, which you can group or like sync up to 4 Stream Decks. So that's where instead of 1 deck, if you got 2 decks, you could sync 2. If you got 3, you could sync 3 or 4, and it'll just, there's a lot of logic behind it so that if you are looking at a certain, input for 1 to 10, then this will be input, 11 to 20. So it sort of follows the logic out, and the more Stream Decks you can add, the more real estate you can have, up to 128 buttons. But I also wanted to make sure that you could run the whole show just from a single 8x4 surface, whether that is a Stream Deck or whether you have something like an iPad. You can actually have 128 buttons now on a page. Is kind of what that looks like here. This is all sort of laid out with tons of button real estate, so you can, just more options there. I'm just going to pop this one back up before I drop that one. Settings, so settings can also do things like restart companion if you're having troubles, or rebooting a Pi, updates, and you can open up emulators on a computer. It also tells you your IP addresses here. The module status, this just gives an overview of what's working and what's not. Notion is not working for whatever reason. Maybe I don't know, it was crashed for, I noticed that before the show, but I haven't been using Notion. So anyway, now I've reset it and it is good. Slides I have disabled at the moment, so that's what that looks like. And then there's 2 empty buttons here, which are going out of focus. A boot up and shut down. They're just placeholders. You can place your own actions into them, like starting, up an ATEM or cameras or whatever you want. But it's just a nice place to have a sort of boot up sequence or a shutdown sequence, and they're long press buttons. So if you press them, nothing happens until you hold them down. And then user one, I've got additional menu jumps here, but this will be a blank space that you can play with. Let's move on to the shot layer, and this is where you're going to do your primary switching, and that's so that it can say fast and clean while remaining visually organized, and you're not having to go into a whole lot of pages to do that. So we click over to the shot page. Again, we've got 3 sub pages which you can come back to, and these are also long press enabled. So if you want to, you can hold it down, you could press a button and release, and you'll come back here. So think of this as a shift. This is only set up for a 1ME, but if you had a 4ME, you could have another layer of buttons in here. And when you can jump to inputs 11 to 20 or something like that, release it, and you come back. So that's a way to have more real estate within the one page, not having to jump out to other sections. You still got your navigation up here, and also just making it easy so you can press it or press back, or if you want more advanced function, you can hold it and release. Again, like I said, you can hold the ATEM button if you want to change which channel it's assigned into. And I didn't mention before, but in the ATEM settings, under settings, this is where you can actually determine what inputs are in your list of assignments, so that if you got a 4ME, there's like 80 plus inputs there, whereas if you've got an HDMI Mini, you've got a lot fewer inputs, and you're not going to cycle through all these redundant settings. So that is what you can select with there, depending on which profile version you have. But this is where you're going to do your switching and cut and auto, and like I showed you before, you can quickly change to routing or back to switching, or you can jump into the ATEM. And it's menu aware too, so now when I exit out of here, it's going straight into the shot page. It's not coming back to page 1 and then clicking into there. So means you can jump in, change something auxiliary, and then you're back onto your switching page. So this is more like hard switching. And that's in contrast to the scene layer. So whereas the shots were sort of hard cutting different camera angles. The scene layer really is a dedicated macro space for production specific scene logic, and this is something that you will build because it will be something specific to you, but there is this designated space here. You can see I've got my buttons that I've built out here. What yours will be is just this will be a blank canvas except for 1, 2, 3, which is the additional real estate that you can place onto a page. And this is really how I run a show, is between a lot of the time on the scene page, just recalling different looks, like this this look, hero, CU hero. If I press that, this is this look. Whereas if I press my Supersource, that's where I can go into this look, or I can come back to a safety shot here, which clears away the upstream keys and that kind of stuff. And then I'll come back into my hero shot, and you'll see back here it's reframing for the close-up. So think of this as adding in your own switching, any sort of PTZ camera position movements that you want, any audio or lighting cues. You can add all of that into these buttons so that you can switch a show very easily without having to do 5 steps to run something. Okay, this is the show dashboard, which is really important when you're live because you have a very limited attention span and you need everything consolidated into one spot. And so the show dashboard is clocks, recording control, and YouTube status live together into one consolidated dashboard. So if we click over to the show page, it's broken up into a couple of sections, which I will show you. The first is the clock. So this clock page shows you the time, obviously. There's also 4 clocks here, and they're for sort of key moments in a show. So you've got pre-roll, show start, end, and wrap. And you can press these to arm them. So for example, my show's gonna end in 28 minutes, and if I press this highlight shows me that it is armed, and it's going to trigger the end show function. So if I come back over here, see this end show here, any functions that you place in here are going to execute now, and I can also disable this here. So I can, this is when it hits 0. So you can arm and disarm without having any effect. These buttons are long press so that you don't, accidentally end a show. And these are designed to sit outside of your run of show sequence. We'll get to the run of show in a bit. The run of show is something where you'd be rehearsing again and again, going back to first positions and just making sure you've got all your cues down. Whereas on the show page, these 4 buttons give you a way to basically set an automatically timed trigger so that at, for example, let's do a real one, at 1400, my end show sequence will run. And so it means that, things like starting live stream, starting encoders, all that kind of stuff that you wouldn't want to do in a rehearsal, you can put that into these functions here, and you can either, hold them to manually execute them. It's like a half-second long press and it'll execute, or arm it for a particular time. And in the clock, you can come into clock presets and you can just select different show times that are pre-built, or in the back end, you can go in and just adjust what clock times you want. You also, on the front end, you can change the clock settings. So for example, the show is going to end at 14:00 on the dot. If I wanted it to be 14 and 00 and 5 seconds, you can see up here I've entered this highlighted in here, and then these are highlighted to show that I can enter it into any one of these. And I'm going to put it into my end show. And so now this is updated. I've added 5 seconds onto the end of the show here. And so now when I arm this is going to happen at 14 and 1405 seconds. So that is the clocks. There's also there's a dashboard within the surfaces that you can put this sort of feedback up on a screen so that you can have your clocks visible while you're doing a show. Also, you can tie these to so there's a segment timer here, and you can link this to the queues to automatically execute after a certain amount of time, which we'll get into in a sec. This was Notion. I haven't been using it so much recently because I've been using Google Sheets in its place, but this is just, if you like Notion and you want to start a session, lay down some markers, those 3 buttons are available there. And then over here we've got a sort of mini YouTube dashboard showing the show title. It shows that we're live. There's a button to stop the stream. Going live and stopping YouTube are also long press buttons. Whenever it's long press, you'll see hold here to indicate that it is a button that you don't want to take lightly. You can see the viewers, get to the 24 viewers that we have live at the moment. And then also there's a chat here, which is pulling in Google Sheet data, and I can pre-write chat comments and click to insert that. So that is the show page, and then there's also a record page here, and which has got a web presenter, a hyperdeck, and 3 ATEMs if they support it. So at the moment I'm streaming on a web presenter, and I am recording a backup of this onto my ATEM Extreme ISO, which is in ATEM 2. All right, let's get to the queue system. So this is something that's been around, but it's had some modifications, and it's had a complete overhaul and rewrite. It used to be sit across pages on the back end, and now everything's just on page 5 in the back end, which makes it much easier to just sort of, understand what is going on in it. But it's basically a run of show of 24 queues to help you reduce cognitive load during live operation. This is how I run my show, and this is what, for me, makes live streaming fun, because I can focus more on the content of what I'm trying to create, and I don't have to think so much about having to get all of the technical aspects of something correct in the moment, because I can pre-build that and just execute it sequentially. So this is the list. It says list at the moment. I'm gonna jump back over to here, and I'm going to switch back over to queue. So on the first page is where you'll see either queue mode or list mode. Queue mode is running locally on Companion. List is engaging Google Sheets, which we'll get to in 1 second. That's how I'm running the show today. So I'm just disengaging Google Sheets, and I'm running in queue mode. And then I've got 3 sets of queues that I can alternate between. And it's going to be I'm on set 2 at the moment. So now when I go in, now when I go into queue, you can see that these are the queues that I have. There's a forwards and backwards up here, so I can change what is next highlighted. And where are we? I was up to here, I think. And then this button on the end is going, when you press it, it will execute it and advance to the next queue. So this is where you can have a single button. Actually, this is where I just have, this is how I run my show, is like, this is my advance button. And then I have one other button, which I'm cutting to this shot. And that's basically pulled from my scene page. You'll see that's basically, I've taken these 2 buttons and I've put them as a sort of remote control on the browser, which is something that you can do as well. And I'd recommend, it's a really nice way of just being able to advance the show. So that's my little remote that I have here on the side, which is how I'm actually running the show. And so we've got 24 queues, 8, 16, 24. And I've built in under these, and you'll have to build your own, like your first look, So you'll be pre-show, get the cameras in a certain position, turn off the microphones, get everything set for when you want to start the encoder. And then the second one would be show going live, and then I've got 2 parts, my ATEM and my core, and then my goodbye and wrap and other functions down here just to like stop everything. So you can build your own run of show in here and then just execute it by advancing through the queues here. Now, if we go, let me go back to, just turn back on list mode, so I'm actually running on the right section. You'll see this changed and this updated here to show me that I'm running in list mode. Now what I'm running, and I'll press this one, as me advancing the show. So the list system, this is a Google Sheets integration, which is sort of built into the queue system that I just showed you. but this is an external list of queues and metadata that you can bring into the show, and then also Google Sheets, you can log it as well. And this is driving the show flow. And so what this looks like is, let's go to Google Sheets. Basically, once you've connected Google Sheets, it's just any spreadsheet. I've just formatted it a bit, but it's just columns A, B, C, D. Column A is these titles. So this is the show that we've been working through. We're up to here, utilities layer. So this is the header. This is the body content. This is a space for that will pull in links. So and it will insert it into the YouTube description and also into chat if we're doing that. So it means that when I come to a section of the show, I can actually like promote something with a link, and it's in there already. And then column D here is either blank or a number between 1 and 24. And if it's blank, then it's not going to fire the queues. And if it has a number, then it's going to fire that queue number. So the last one I just did was queue number 4, and you'll see here 1, 2, 3, 4, which was this button here. So part 2, and this was, so this had under this queue, it had some lighting changes in the background. It had a camera change, upstream key changed, and the camera input changed. So all of that happened under this queue, and it was executed by this number here saying, hey, I want to run Q4. So that's how I run my show now. And what's really a time saver about this is when I'm planning a show, it means I don't have to be like in the studio building things. I can just be at home with a laptop and just, or even in a notes app, just like jotting down what I want to cover in a show. And then I can paste it into a Google spreadsheet, or I can just build it in a spreadsheet. And so it's basically topics and content, and then I can bring that up visually. All of this text is what you've been seeing brought onto the screen. So that is really, that's how I run my show, and it makes it much easier to get through content without needing auto queue or any of that kind of stuff, and just have that show structure in place. Let's go to the utilities layer. So there's basically 5 applications that are included in DJF Core. One is VLC Playback, H2R Graphics, YouTube, Google Sheets, and Slides, or Vicrio. So jump back over here. You'll find them on the homepage here. So we can go to YouTube. There's like a dedicated YouTube page here, which will show you if you've got other shows coming up, that'll be down here. You can start and stop a show. You can import data from Google Sheets to insert chats and chapters. If I reset this one. And so I can insert this in the chat. Where are we? Let's find one that so I'm pulling in, hello, where in the world are you joining from today? Drop your questions in the chat, starting with a Q. And so now when I press that, it just popped it up into the chat, which you'll see on the side there. So it means that you can like pre-write your content and then just execute it from within this YouTube panel. There's a sheet. So this is Google Sheets. This is a mixture of, this is pulling in the list that we had here before. Remember I was on list row 23, and I'm talking about next Y, I'm talking about Y core matters. And it's, if I want to, I can mark it and advance the queue, and I can go push this data back into Google Sheets into a log sheet. Let's jump back over to Supersource. So it's pulling in this data, and then under log, you can see this is where it's been logging what I've been doing so far, and I can even just like insert takes, is it log 1 or log 2? Oh, we're in log 2. Hang on a second. Up here, log. No, I don't have log 2 in there. Let me just call this log 2. And like so. Take 2. Here we go. Down here. Take 3. So as I can just insert multiple takes. So you could have a producer who is on this sort of metadata panel during a live show who is, or a pre-record or whatever you want to do, something restarted there. One second, I'm not sure what that was. Something killed something. Might have hit something wrong. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna get back up here. Did I kill I think I killed my satellite. What did I kill here? Launch GUI. Let me just see if we're still running. Companion's running. I think I killed my Stream Deck. What did I do here? Here we go. There we go. I think that was I'm running this into my desktop computer, and that was into Companion. Companion was running. It was just the Stream Deck connection to this computer. All right, X7. Hopefully that's working. Still working. All right. So that's the way that I don't know what I'm doing here. Maybe I got a gummy surface somewhere. Companion's running fine. It's just one of my surfaces is playing up. And all right, let's jump out of this one and we'll go into, man, what is going on? Status, connected, remote. Let me just quit this one. Quit. Companion satellite. And it should be running fine. What happens in the live demo, huh? I actually haven't seen that before. Remote, connected. All right. We shall continue on. It's giving me grief. I'm going to disconnect a few surfaces just to make sure it's not additional surfaces. We'll stick with the one. Local connected. Let me try and troubleshoot this. Coming in here, surfaces. That should all be fine. Stream Deck Studio. Oh, something did happen to Companion. All right. I'm not sure what's going on there. Unless it's my Mac Mini. Wait, is that my Mac Mini? Could be my Mac Mini. It better not be restarting. Dun, 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 dun. Surfaces, and in here. Apple TV. I think something's going on with my Mac Mini, which is running that as the core there. Let me have a look. Yep. No, it's still back up. I better not be bringing up a software update. I've disabled that. And quit and I'm not sure exactly what is going on there with that. If that's going to do it again. And it's going to bring up my configured button, emulator, and where'd my iPhone go? Oops, going to bring my configured and iPhone. All right. Okay. I think we're back here. Let me get back here. I'm not sure exactly what that was. Hopefully that is not, I mean, all the live stream in the system is running. It could have been the Mac Mini, from what I gather. But that's strange. I haven't actually, it's the first time I've encountered that. So let's see if we can continue on with what we've got. Okay, so why core matters. Hopefully this doesn't happen on your show, which is, so when this show is fast moving. There's a lot of things happening that this navigation structure, timing, and visibility defines the system so that the operator always knows where they are. Hopefully within the Stream Deck, and get like right to the end of this, and then something plays up. At least within the Stream Deck, you'll know where you are, and you know, I don't know what that was. I'll have to troubleshoot that after the show. Let me come back to here. All right. Let's take a couple of questions before I wrap up and try and get out of here on the hour. Let me have a look. Let's see what questions we've got. Hello, we got Scott. Great to have you here, Scott. Nils, let your nerd be heard. Great to be here. Walter, great to have you here. Seagrim, thank you, appreciate it. Question, does DJF 5 allow the pages to move around and just update a variable for where the page is now at? Yeah, that's a great question because it sort of does. And it's a good thing to point out, which is, jump into here. So on the way this works now on the pages, you can see on the back end here. So the first 5 pages are DJF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I've got YouTube and all that. And then I've got ATEM and I've got PTZ, depending on, you know, if you use those modules. But what I'm using now is over here on this button 1-1, for each set, it has a page anchor and a variable. And if you move it, you have to, if you like shift click it, it'll reset it. And the only rule is you have to keep them in sync. So if you've got the ATEM here, like don't move, and I've labeled them. So it's ATEM 0 is home, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. So we've got 15 ATEM pages. So as long as these stay in sync sequentially within that stack, you can actually, you know, insert or add new pages before it and sort of move them around as a stack. One of the things I'm hoping will change in Companion, but has been a limitation, is like if you've built a page jump to a particular page, and you'll see here this is the page number. So like page 11 is where I've put the ATEM Home. The ATEM button here, where are we? Let me go to page 1. Whoops. The ATEM button 1 is the more complicated button. Would normally go to a hard number, but even with a variable, you have to update it. And so now everything is referencing this page anchor. And so this is particularly for the ATEM and the PTZ pages. The PTZ pages have been reduced. There used to be like, I don't know, 15 pages of PTZs, and now there's just 7. Same thing here with the PTZ pages. You'll see this page anchor is on 26, or ATEM 11. Let me just jump over here. ATEM, the home page here has, so this is off the screen. This is not what's showing up on the ATEM hardware here. And so, you know, you have to access this on the back end, but this is just for setup. So if you just scroll to the left, you'll see this page anchor. So if, rule of thumb, if you add in a page before it, or if this changes, so if this no longer becomes page 11, you just need to come in here and reset that. I might find a way in future updates to just automate that. But it just means that it is movable around within the structure. And the same thing with these YouTube and Sheet and all that. Like if you wanted to, this YouTube page has its own page anchor. So you could move, you know, you could come into, I won't do it now, but like you could grab this and like drag YouTube down, you know, to the bottom of the stack and click to update which page it's on, and then it will automatically jump to that page. And then you'd also have to change what is being changed before it, because ATEM would then become page 10, not page 11. But it's certainly helped with flexibility because I'm not like reprogramming things over and over again, and makes it a bit more flexible. Let me just, whoa, we got to get to, where am I? I got to get back to my shot. Rick from Boston, great to have you here. Congrats on the release. I need to watch replay later. It will all be up there, including whatever happened before. Looks good. G'day Jim from Las Vegas. Glad you could join. Will ATEM get an audio level feedback just like RCV? I have seen talk of that in the GitHub forum, so hopefully, but that's something on the companion level things that would need to come. That's similar to the thumbnails that were added. And if it can get in there, I'll certainly put that in there. Is there an easy way to switch mic buttons between stereo and mono mode? Yes, that is in, it depends on the hardware and it'll show you. So if you go to ATEM audio, see how these are grayed out. If you go to page 2, I've put in mic 1 left and, where are we? Mic 1 left and right, mic 2 left and right. So it's in there on the second page, 11 to 20. It's just, you'd have to plug in a ATEM Mini for that to be highlighted, and you'd also have to go into your settings and change it to split the audio, and then it would show up on here. But yeah, it's in there. Is the new H2R version 3 supported? Yes, it is. I'm running that right now. I need to remove my face, huh? Let me just go to key preset, move this over there. And also I just need to get back to my shot here. I'm running it now. That's in the iPad. That's what is running all of the graphics. And there's a H2R project file that's included in this bundle, which is pre-linked. Because we had all of the, actually I don't think I showed you that, did I? But in H2R, you can bring up all of these things like a QR code. You know, if you want to scan that and you go to DJF Live and you can check out the products and blah blah. You can do that, or you can bring on all the stuff that was mostly there before, and put up a logo, that kind of stuff. So all of these buttons connect to specific slugs in the rundown. Here we go. So all of these slugs are connected. So this project file is included so that you can link it. So you don't have to link your buttons individually. Like, you just import the file and then you would change your, however you want to, where am I clicking on? This one. However you want it to look, is you would change that in there. Let me jump back to my, where do I go? Social. Here we are. ATEM. G'day, Scott from St. Louis. Great to have you here. Seems like a great device. Appreciate that. I'm still trying to get up and running with my ATEM ISO G2. Where are we? Sorry, I started reading before I clicked it. I'm still trying to get up and running with ATEM ISO G2, having purchased this update at the moment. Is there someone available that can help me get started properly? I can certainly, on my website, there's a consultation link if you want to go and I can help you set that up. I assume you're saying you're just trying to get the ATEM set up, because the G2 should all be connected in Companion and all that kind of stuff now. So, let me have a look. Tried the Google Sheet integration. I didn't get it correct. The Google Sheets, it takes a little bit of time to figure out and get it connected. Once you're connected, I don't think I've looked at the connection in 2 years. It's just connected and it just works. So I'd say stick with it. On my website is a page of showing you how to, the screenshots and leading you through how to install it, because it's, it's not just like an OAuth thing where you're just connecting it to your Gmail account. There's a couple of steps you've got to do in it to authenticate Google Sheets. Let me see. What else we got in here? Receiving Obsbot Tail 2 on Saturday. Is that compatible with your Tail software package? It's a good question because I've had some people ask about that. I've built the Obsbot Tail Air, the package on my website at the moment as it stands is built for the Tail Air. I believe it mostly works with the Tail 2. There's probably some like auto tracking features that don't work because they have different codes between the Tail Air and the Tail 2. So I have a sheet I can send you, which would just have, like, you could update those buttons. But for the most part, it would work. It's using Visca over IP, so it would do most Visca cameras. It's just some of the, I don't know why they changed the numbers. I guess they have the reasons, but like, it's just like, there's specific OSC codes that changed in between those. This makes it so much where are we? This makes it so much easier since I already have the pages on several pages that are in your profile. Last time I had to manually export the JSON to update it all. Good. I'm glad that talking about the page updates. Yes, you can move that around and relink it. Same with the home pages too. So if you don't want the DJF core to sit at page 1, you can update that to page 7 or whatever you want. So it just more flexibility there. Let's see. Remember you from heard Benny. Remember you from Aaron's live stream. Was I on? Or are you talking to someone else? Let me see. Yes, and on Discord there's an office hours global community. Also, the H2R Graphics community is really good on Discord. If you have questions, they can answer things there. If you just need some things to get up and going. All right, we're actually a couple minutes past my big remember to set the clock to be like, we're finishing up. You remember this guy? Where was it? Under clock. We're now 2 minutes past the end of show, so I should really get out of here. And let me see what we got. All right, so let's wrap up here. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that helped. DJFlive.com is where you can go to get those profiles for the ATEM are out now. There's also a new profile for the Canon PTZ, which I'll talk about next week and sort of do a demo of that, so stick around for that, but that is live if you want to check that out in the shop. As always, thank you for watching and supporting the channel, and we're here to try and make your live streaming life and your live presentation life easier. Until next week, take care, and I'll see you then.